My name is Matt Francis. I'm the executive editor of the Messenger Inquirer, and I will be asking the questions tonight. I'm going to briefly explain the format that we're going to go through, and for those of you who watched the legislative debate or attended on Tuesday night, it's going to be very similar to that. We will start with opening statements. Each candidate will be given 60 seconds to give an opening statement. The candidates are seated on stage in the order that they appear on the ballot, and that's how we will go down the row. So Teresa Thomas will start with the first opening statement, and then we will proceed down the line. At that point, after everyone has given their opening statement, we will go to questions. I have 4 questions to ask tonight. Every candidate will answer the same questions. And we will do that. We will move odd numbers down the line. So the first question will be directed to Joseph Martin. The second question will be directed to Bob Glenn. The third question to Pam Smith-Wright, and so forth down the line. You will have 90 seconds to answer each question. Once we've gone through all 4 questions, everybody's had a chance to answer those. Everyone will be given a chance to make a closing argument as well, and that will be 60 seconds. And we will start at the end of the row with Mark Anthony Howard. You will give the first closing. Jacqueline Graves is keeping time. She'll hold up and let you know. I believe she has 30-second warning, and she'll let you know when your time is up. So try to keep an eye on her, and let's try to keep this flowing well. So one thing I want to remind everyone is if you attended the forum the other night or watched, it was an incredibly civil event. We want to keep this the same way. We would like to have no audience participation. Let's limit the clapping, no commenting. Be respectful of the folks who are on stage and give them the opportunity to answer their questions. So with this many people on stage, I know it can be difficult to, by the time you're the 8th, 9th, 10th person answering a question, to remember exactly what it was I asked. So if you want me to repeat the question, just ask. I'll be happy to do so. So with that, we will start with the opening statements, and Teresa Thomas, you go first.
Okay. My name is Teresa Thomas, and I live here in Owensboro, and the main reason why I'm doing this, for most of you citizens that need to know, is I have young children. I feel that we need to engage our youth in the importance of what goes on in our economy. Obviously, right now, we know that we've got some debt that we have to work on. That is not something that any of us up here are going to be able to fix as soon as we get into our positions, whoever is elected. It will take time, so there are things that I have that is innovative that maybe could work on bringing some ideas to town to help the youth to bring some revenue. I look forward to serving you as a city commissioner if I'm voted in. As you all know, I'm number 1 on the ballot, and I am open for any type of questions at any time. It's very hard to get this in 60 seconds, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Rob.
My name is Bob Darling. I'm a lifelong resident of Owensboro. I'm retired from OMU. My campaign slogan is helping the citizens keep more money to spend on their wants and their needs. We have many challenges that are going on in Owensboro, and one of the main challenges is getting government and the citizens back in a conversation with each other. I'll give you an example. We have a new TIF that will be approved next month. We have to look at whether that TIF will get enough money to supply what's needed in the downtown. If it doesn't, then we're going to have to go to the citizens for that. We have the challenges. I'm number 2 on the ballot, Bob Darling.
Hi, my name is Joseph Martin. Thank you for having me here today. I'm a Vietnam veteran trying to make a difference. I want to develop a plan that helps solve the city's debt. Also, I'm against tax increase. 2 things I will ask: can we afford it? Do we need it? Downtown Riverfront is great, but what about the rest of the city? I support working families, senior citizens, fire and police department, and small business too. I'm 100% for accountability, efficiency, and transparency. My vision is City Zoo, Riverboat, solar energy, and ambulance service. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andy Gamblin, and I'm running for City Commissioner because we are in debt, and I want to help and get us out of debt. I appreciate the chamber for having us here tonight, and also I appreciate the school and for opening their facilities to this event. It's a great event, and if I become city commissioner, we will work and try to get this debt down. I want to take care of our police and fire department because they have been stretched way too thin, and we need to help them. So just consider me on November the 8th.
Good evening. My name's Bob Glenn, and I'm in the middle of my second term serving you as one of 4 city commissioners. Just want to say that many years ago, we had a lot of discussion, a lot of thought about what to do with our community. We basically downtown had a fountain, a tree, and a bench. It was pretty much downtown Riverfront. Now we have hundreds of thousands of people visiting our community. We have 3,700 new jobs, one of the lowest employment rates in the Commonwealth, and we're the envy of the state. Do we have debt? Of course we do. Every city who's invested in itself has debt. But that debt has produced new jobs. That debt has raised our profile to the point where the Kentucky League of Cities has recognized us as an enterprise community for private-public partnerships, and I believe this is just the beginning. We're bringing new business here. We're keeping our young people here. We're making an even more livable and great city to live in, and as your city commissioner, I've enjoyed being part of it and hope you'll return me on November 8th to the commission again to keep serving you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Larry Condor, and just so you know, I can't see you, but you may not be able to see me because this light is just really beaming off my forehead right here. Okay, I'm from Owensboro. I'm originally from Whitesville, Knoxville. My mother and father grew up from there. I have 6 children, 3 with my wife, and 3 of my own. We have 17 grandchildren. I went to Brewster University, graduated in 1983, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and Murray State MBA. My real job is I'm a natural gas broker. I buy and sell natural gas physically and financially. One of the biggest reasons why I wanted to do this is for our children, to make sure prosperity continues for our children in our home. I truly have a passion for our home that is exhibited by what we did downtown, but that needs to stretch out to the rest of our community. We have other areas that needs to be paid attention to. So what I want to do is bring that, my expertise, not only what I do for a real job, into OMU and other areas, but to make sure other businesses thrive. And we use local employment, we use local opportunities to make sure we all rise together. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Pam Smith-Wright, a lifelong resident of Owensboro, and I am vying for my 4th term on this commission. I am Owensboro's first woman mayor pro tem. I was Owensboro's first woman mayor pro tem, and I'm very proud of that because during that time that I was mayor pro tem, we cut ribbons on a lot of new things in this community. 8 years ago, our city was boarded up downtown, and today we're the envy of everyone in the state and those out of the state. So I would love to continue to serve this community, which I love, and I ask for your vote on November the 8th, and I'm number 7 on the ballot. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jay Vallada. I'm a long-life resident of Owensboro myself, as all of us are, I guess, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here. It's kind of weird not being able to see people. I'm used to working in front of audiences, but I can see them, so it's a little different for me tonight. I have a few things that, I think I bring to the table. I've been involved in the community for a lot of years with everything from Friday After 5 to working on a lot of different boards that try to help the community. I think we have to have a few things to keep this community moving forward, and part of that is making sure our infrastructure is strong. Me being a real estate broker and a developer, I know how that infrastructure makes it possible for us to get to work every day. We also need to continue to support our essential services, that'd be Owensboro Fire Department, OPD, our ambulatory services, and things that help us stay safe in this community and continue to move forward. We also need to make sure we try to keep local dollars local. It's important to keep that money in the community. That's by keeping local workers working here so that we can continue to grow this community with all these great projects that have started and continue the progress in a reasonable and sensible manner. I appreciate your vote. I'm number 8 on the ballot, and look forward to serving you. Thank you.
I am Joey Connolly. Owensboro elects 4 commissioners to have different voices representing different interests. Many of our candidates tonight have talked about economic development, which is a vital issue to our community and our city, but it's not the only issue. Our commission must make decisions that positively impact the people of Owensboro. For too long, we have had local government who will only need 20 minutes to sell the sports center, but need over a year to decide on issues that affect people, like the fairness ordinance. I want to be the commissioner who can balance business and human interests. I will focus on economic development by trying to create new sources of revenue. But more importantly, I want to grow our people. I want a mentorship program that works with seniors of local institutions of higher education to match them with successful local business people so that those students can learn how to make Owensboro their home for their business and their lives. I want to pass a fairness ordinance so that no one can be fired for any reason other than job performance. I want to design hiring initiatives that encourages more minorities to apply for city jobs so that our city government can be inclusive and represent all citizens. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Howard. I was born and raised in Owensboro. Make my living today as customer service manager at a grocery store on the east end of town. Been at that role for about 8 years. I see many of you here and serve many of you at the store. The transformation of the riverfront and the downtown streetscape is impressive and a boost the city needed. We've seen marked improvements in recreation and tourism opportunities, but what are we missing? After all, the city is more than just downtown. How do we increase convention traffic? How do we increase tourism? What is holding our community back, and what will propel us forward as we meet the future and compete in a changing global and political economic landscape? Thank you.
Okay, just a reminder, 90 seconds for each question, and we will start the first question directed to Joseph Martin. We'll move down the line for answers and then wrap back around. First question. For the last 8 years, I think it's safe to say that we have had a very aggressive mayor, and whether you're a fan of that or not, I think most would agree that he has exercised more executive involvement than the statutory mayoral role calls for in a city manager form of government. So I would like to know how you define the role of the mayor and the city manager, and how should the city commission function with each? Joseph Martin.
Well, I think the mayor is part of the system, but it should be, everybody should have their input, and I think it should be a team effort, not just one individual decide what goes on. Thank you.
Andy Gamblin.
To me, the mayor, I will say he's done a good job, but also he's got us in some debt, and to me, it takes a team effort. It takes all of us, united we stand, and to me, the mayor, the city manager, the city council, we should all work together, and if it's not feasible, then we should not be doing it. The city commission should say, hey, look, this is not feasible. It's going to maybe put us in debt, and and so we should be careful on how we spend the money, and not only just in one area, but we need to look at maybe in all the areas. Frederica is in need of help and everything, and I think about the mall. When you take a stop away from the mall, when seniors goes out there to exercise and go shopping, that's not good. And then when you cut from the police department and fire department, that's not good either. So we need to watch how we spend, and everybody work together and try not to get into debt.
Am I next, Matt?
Yes, you are.
Okay, just waiting for the cue.
Yes.
I think it's important to understand that my view of the city manager versus the mayoral role is the city manager is there 24/7 to deal with the daily needs of the city, to make sure our buses are working, to make sure that our fire and police have the logistical and strategic elements they need to function. The mayor's job is to set the agenda. The mayor's job is to set a tone for the city and to be the face of the city. And whether you like Ron Payne or not, he's done that. He's the face of Owensboro. He's won the Kentucky League of Cities Mayor's Award of Excellence. He's brought many awards to this city. Now, what I bring to the table, and that is, I believe they both have important roles to play. And there are times I wish the mayor might have communicated a little bit better with all of us. But I will say this, I agree in the sense that we needed to do something about our community, not just downtown, but the entire community. And secondarily, there are times when I've disagreed with the mayor, and I think that's what democracy is all about. I very vehemently disagree with him when he wanted to close Hillcrest Golf Course, and we were able to reverse that decision. I very much disagree with his decision not to build a senior center, because I think we made that promise to the citizens of this community, and if I'm reelected, I'm going to keep being a voice to upgrade the services we provide our senior citizens. So there are times we disagree, but I very much respect Ron Payne, I respect what he's done for this community, and long after he's gone, we're going to thank him for his contributions to this community, for moving us forward and making us the star of this Commonwealth.
Larry Condor.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's look at the city of Owensboro in a business-type scenario. For example, the city manager is basically the CEO. That person, Bill Parrish in this example, runs the business, the daily business of the city. Whatever that might be, whether it be the sidewalk needs to be repaired or we're looking at whatever budget cuts we need to do. That's what Bill Parrish is related to do. Okay, he's the CEO of what the city does. The mayor basically is the president of the board. The rest of the commissioners that you will have, those four are also on that board. Each one of those individuals has an equal right of vote. Each one of them has one vote. They don't necessarily have the mayor having 1.5 and everybody else has 0.75 of a vote. It doesn't work that way. Each one of them have exactly the same. So what you have to have then is a staff that has done very, very well over the last 8 years in managing our successes that has occurred. And yes, we have other opportunities to make it happen. But here's the key for everyone to understand and look at and evaluating who you're going to vote for. Critical thinking. Who is it that will be able to sit there and whether they agree or disagree with the new mayor or the other staff members or anything else, what will they be able to bring to the table to be able to recognize when questions need to be asked, and do you have answers for those questions when they happen? Thank you.
Pam Smith-Wright.
Would you please repeat the question?
I sure will, and I'll shorten it. Basically, how do you define the role of the mayor and the city manager, and how should the city commission function with each?
Okay. The role of the mayor, in my opinion, is that he is the figurehead of this city. He is the face of the city. And the city manager is just that. He manages this city. I think that what happened is because Mayor Payne had been the city manager, he had also been a city commissioner, and he's a CPA, that he became a strong-willed mayor. And he knew all of the ins and the outs, and so he was able to get a lot of things done. But I do want you to know that as a commissioner, if we didn't vote on all these things, then they wouldn't have gotten done. People need to realize that the mayor needs to have a vision for where this city is going, but he still has to depend on the commission to see that vision and to follow that vision. And if we don't do that, then we'll vote against it. So I know that everybody says that Ron Payne did all of this, he did all of that, and true enough, I give him a lot of credit. But he had 4 commissioners that were right there with him to agree or disagree on what's happening in our community. Thank you.
Jay Vallata.
As everyone said up to now, it takes more than one vote to make the decision, and the mayor was one vote of 5 on a board of people that were considered to be leaders in the community. Having the opportunity to build leadership teams over the years in my career and being able to train people to become leaders, you have a lot of different types of leadership. Ron Payne may or may not have been the best choice for being considered a leader, but he's done a pretty good job of making sure that we've had the opportunities. He had to be a little bit aggressive maybe at times, but as a aggressive leader, you drag your team along, and I don't know that anybody got drugged. You know, they were there and they had their vote. Everyone expressed their opinion. But as a servant leader, you push your people to be better. And I think that he played a lot of different traits in that. He had a role that was a very tough role. City manager is exactly what we talked about. He manages everything. The city's a well-oiled machine. If you know anything about working from the inside out, I've had the opportunity to work with the city staff, work with Bill Parrish and some of the inner workings of the city in a role with the city before I decided to run for commission. And I tell you what, they do a great job. They've worked hard to every day to make sure that the city continues to move forward. And with the proper leadership and building the right team, that's what people have to remember. It's going to take a great team to lead this city forward and to keep us moving in the right direction as we continue to grow and progress. Thank you.
Joey Connolly.
I do think a lot of the definitions are in the name. The city leadership, which is the mayor and the commissioners, are responsible for innovative vision, and the city manager's role is to see that vision played out while balancing everything else it takes to run a city. So I do think a lot of the roles are inherent in their job titles. Mayor Payne was a city manager before, so he may have had, I wouldn't say he overstepped, but his experience may have made him more in a position to make more city manager decisions than mayor decisions, since he fulfilled both roles. But like people have said, the important part is balance. And like I said in my intro, there's a reason there are 4 city commissioners, 1 mayor, and 1 city manager. We do need a plurality of voices and visions. We need people who are able to stand up for decisions or against decisions and not be afraid of that. Mr. Condon mentioned critical thinking, which I do think is absolutely essential, but the other part of that is someone who's a critical thinker who is also not afraid to speak and speak up often and not afraid to possibly lose future votes because of current decisions. Thank you.
Mark Anthony Howard.
I think Mayor Payne's aggressive approach to development within the city was much needed and came as a result of him being a city manager and knowing a lot of the inside roles. As far as the mayor goes, I agree with Ms. Smith-Wright that he is the face of the city. Beyond that, I feel the mayor is just 1 vote in addition to 4 other votes of people interested in changing the city. It's important to note that we not lose momentum as we elect a new board. Owensboro has come a long way, and I know Mayor Payne takes a lot of flack for a lot of the development projects downtown. But we cannot lose momentum or we will fall stagnant again, and it'll be another 20 or 30 years before we have any kind of change again. I do agree that the city manager handles a lot of the day-to-day activity, serving as a strong force in the background. I like to think of the city manager as being the 5th Beatle. Thank you.
Teresa Thomas.
To kind of piggyback off everyone, it is run like a business. It has to be, and that's where the financial part comes from on the city manager and the government, the way it's run. Mayor Ron Payne has done an excellent job in making our community move forward, and we can say that, but it's not just Ron Payne. It's people like you out there that have voiced an opinion of what you might want in our community. They don't just make this stuff up, sitting in a panel and say, well, let's go build a park. So it does come from the citizens. So maybe in some sense, we need to address the community a little more on the wants and needs that you want, so we can be better leaders inside the commission. So basically, if you have Ron Payne, who is considered the board president, and then you have your 4 commissioners, what is it that you all can do to help us lead a better commission? Because that's what I'm hearing is that we don't listen to the community. So that is something that when you're looking at the way it's the dynamics of how it's built, yes, Ron Payne, he's the boss. Then you have the 4 commissioners, but they all have to vote. But at the end of the day, we have all these forums that you all come to, and we listen to what you want. But what happens after we're voted in? We need you all to continue to be a part of this aggressive moving forward that we are looking for in the city of Owensboro. Thank you.
Bob Darling.
Okay. What everybody else said too. But anyway, what I wanted to say was, I'm going to take a little different tack to this. I believe for the last 8 years, we've had more of a pronouncement than we've had a conversation. A conversation is a two-way street. There might always be agreement, but it's a two-way street. And I just do not see the two-way street there. It seems like it's always done, and this is what the citizens are going to do. What I see the mayor as, having grown up with Dugan Best and Wakeman Taylor and everything, I see the mayor as being kind of the representative of the city. No matter what he votes on, he's the one that's out shaking hands, welcoming people to Owensboro, and is out in the community. I think we've been lacking that for the last couple of years. Another thing, that someone mentioned the senior center. I understand because of the TIF out on 54 that there's not money for a senior center, so that's going to fall back on the city if we're going to supply something for the seniors. So there's projects that are going to have to be done that might not be popular, I understand that, but we have to get the citizens involved so that they buy into the projects. If they don't buy into the projects, there's always going to be heartfelt feelings there. Thank you.
Okay, for question 2, just a reminder, we will start with Bob Glenn and work our way down just like we did with question 1. A lot of you mentioned debt in your opening statements, and that's what this question will focus on. Revenues in certain funds are coming in lower than anticipated. Additional debt service will be coming soon. And I think a lot of people, a lot of discussion that I've heard feel like a tax increase is imminent. In the past, whether it be with Hillcrest or the Bluegrass Museum or whatever, the go-to funds seem to have been the occupational and net profits taxes. So my question is, will you commit to an outside study to determine how to best move forward on taxes and paying down debt rather than simply placing additional burdens on the occupational and net profits taxpayers? And if not, what will you do specifically to address this issue?
Well, I think the first thing we need to understand is that the state of Kentucky and really the federal government, since the $40 million that Mitch McConnell provided for the flood wall work 8 years ago, has pretty much walked away from us. They haven't done much now. Governor Beshear's assistance with the Bluegrass Center is an exception to that. But I must say that the city pulled itself up by its own bootstraps, and as a result, we have debt that we have to address. What I would say is we grow the city's population, and we're doing that. You can see it anecdotally throughout our community. We're bringing in new businesses. That's going to help us with net profits tax and occupation tax. The other issue is many cities of the second class, and that's what Owensboro is, are hindered by our tax system at the state level. I think it's important for the next mayor, and I'll be happy to go with him as a city commissioner, to go to Frankfurt, even go to Washington if necessary, and say, look, you need to help cities. But more importantly, at the state level, we need an opportunity to have a room tax or hotel tax that the city benefits from. Right now, the county collects it, and it goes to CBB. We see none of it, and yet we have a tremendous boon in hotel room occupancy. We possibly need to look at a restaurant tax. Madisonville just was able to get one because they're a Class 5 city with 20,000 people. So there's an inequity in the tax system. Now, those taxes, as Joey Connolly will tell you, will benefit us because tourists, the people who visit here, will really bear the biggest burden, not our residents. And more importantly, we do need to make tough decisions about where we spend and don't spend money. And I have, on many occasions, said there are certain things we spend money on. I'd like us to shift our priorities. But I think overall, we will work through this issue and we'll grow our community. And that's the simplest way to address the issues of debt and tax issues in our community.
Larry Condor?
I believe, could you repeat your question?
Just the last part. The last part, absolutely. Will you commit to an outside study to determine how to best move forward on taxes and paying down debt rather than simply placing additional burdens on the occupational and net profits taxpayers? And if not, what will you do to specifically address this issue?
To answer the question point blank, committing to a study, fine, that's no problem. Sometimes those studies can cost over $100,000 to be able to conduct, and that's okay if we as a community wish to do so. So to answer your question point blank, sure, no problem. The other thing to be able to look at, to make sure everyone realizes, is what happened this last year with our financials. If you look at what happened as to the end of the year, June 2015, we actually were only, if I remember correctly, only $125,000 short on our actual plans, our revenues to our expenses. That's really not that bad, considering what all we've been able to do. And yes, the budget looks like it's way out of line, but again, you have a great staff that's managing that, is what they're doing. Now, to put some other things in perspective, Moody's downgraded the city of Owensboro in May of 2016 to capital A2. To give you perspective, their fiscal court is little a 2. That's 2 notches above the city of Owensboro. Owensboro Hospital is Baa3, 4 below. So we're right in between that area as far as our credit rating. Credit rating affects what you're able to borrow money at. If you need to do that any longer is what that does. Now the next issue is look at where our revenue streams actually were short, net profits tax. That's a big issue, guys. It's a big issue in that it not only affects our community, it affects our state. And it to a certain extent, affects our nation. People move legally a way to waterfall their profits into other areas besides just the community. So I'm now getting the time, but I can keep going here, really. I got a lot of notes on this one. So it can be addressed. We will do that, okay?
Pam Smith Wright.
You know, I don't have a problem with doing a study, but studies are expensive, and we have so many studies already that we could start our own library at the city. But, you know, everyone wants all of these things, but nobody wants to pay taxes. I have been on the commission for 8 years, and we have not, for 6 years, but we have not raised property taxes in this community for 8 years. Now, nobody realizes that, but they think that their taxes have been raised, but it's not the city that is raising taxes. If you look at your tax bill when it comes, you look at the difference between your school tax and your city tax. And your school tax is higher than your city tax. But my thing is, you cannot run the city of Owensboro on 2008 finances when this is 2016. And people have to realize that it's just like everything else in your household. Your bills go up and you have to make adjustments. So we're going to have to make some adjustments at City Hall, true enough. But sooner or later, taxes are going to have to be raised. And I'm just being honest about it. Thank you.
Jay Vallata.
To answer the first part of the question, do we really truly need to do a study? That's a question we'll have to look at and see. I'm sure there's been studies done by communities that have the answer. Maybe we talk to our neighbors, they might have a little bit more information we can use. But if we need to do a study and it's something that's deemed necessary, sure, let's do a study. However, when it comes to raising taxes, that's the taboo. Nobody wants to think about that. We got a lot of infrastructure in here, a lot of things that are going on in our city, a lot of new development that is going to be generating some income. There's some income generators out on Highway 54 that will soon be in the ground coming out here in the next couple of years. We're hoping that offsets some of this. But in the meantime, what do you do? Well, I think someone hit on it a little bit earlier. We might have to go lobby in Frankfort with our mayor and our candidates here that are wanting to make a difference and possibly talk to the state about if it's going to happen, it's probably going to have to happen at the state level. And they're working with hot button issues too, like tax on services. I'm in the service industry. A lot of people are. You start taxing that, it affects me from top to bottom. I'm concerned about taxes. I don't need more taxes. No one does. But we certainly need to make sure that we try to do that in a responsible manner as far as, do we raise them? Is that the answer? I don't know. We have to look at the entire budget and determine what's the best end result. I don't want higher taxes. I live in the city just like everyone does, and if you can't afford to live here, then, you know, it's not going to be any good to have people here. We'll lose them as quick as we get them. So, thank you.
Joey Connolly.
I don't like to think of government as a business or a household. I mean, I know those analogies are very common, but I don't think they're quite accurate. But if we go with the household analogy, and if I run a household that just took on $130 million worth of debt, the next step would be, what am I going to do to pay for some of this debt? And that really is where the city is. We're all very grateful for the improvements made downtown, but now comes the time we have to pay for it. So I spent a lot of time trying to come up with new sources of revenue that were not tax increases, especially for property and occupational. And one of the things I came up with, which is complicated because of how we're classified by the state, which is an issue that needs to be taken care of anyway, but I would like to see an increase in occupancy rates on our local hotels, like Bob mentioned, and have that money be earmarked just to pay for our debt service. If you look at the budget from last year, the debt service is by far the largest line item. So if we can have just the extra money coming in from hotels dedicated to downtown, that would free up some money for the rest of the city departments who need strong services. I think looking at all revenue and expenses is a very important step, and maybe relook at our organizational chart to see if all positions are truly needed with the changes that government has made. And I would commit to a study, but I would sooner commit to new, innovative ways to increase our city's revenue that are not taxes. Thank you.
Mark Anthony Howard.
Of course, I'd be open to a reasonably priced study. But barring the expense of that, I'd also be open to traveling to Frankfurt and consulting with the governor. It's important to think long-term with major city spending like this, and I'm confident that eventually we'll see an ample return of investment. But I think there are a couple of things we could do at the city level that are inexpensive, that will get convention traffic, tourism traffic, and maybe some big business in town, and that is the fairness ordinance. I believe big business and fairness go hand in hand. When we need to look at ourselves as being approachable, and that means taking any edge we can. If we're seen as a warm, open, welcoming community, then the dollars will roll in. It's just a matter of time. I happen to agree with Mr. Connolly here about looking at a hotel occupancy tax and a restaurant tax. These are all revenue sources that we could look at instead of having to tax our hardworking families. When it comes time for the debt service to be due, I will advocate for hardworking citizens. I'll be pragmatic and well-informed, and no decision will be made without first considering how it will affect the most least privileged citizen of Owensboro. Thank you.
Teresa Thomas.
All right, to answer your first question about doing studies, I think they're very costly, and I feel that we could reach out to our surrounding counties that possibly, or cities that have already done these studies, to investigate what they have found, because when you're warm and open to people, they are warm and open to you, and that's what we have to do. We have to be leaders and reach out to the other communities. One thing that I'm going to share with you all, and it's something Candace Blake has said over and over at every not city commission meeting, but every chamber meeting we go to, is that we cannot get anything done here unless we as citizens go vote and make sure Frankfurt hears us, because to address some of these issues that we have locally in our economy, we're going to have to go to Frankfurt for. Listening to Larry Condor and some of them that have said, hey, we're classified where we are classified at the state. Well, we can't do anything about it unless Frankfurt notices us. So I'm taking Candace Blake's suggestion, and you all need to make sure that you're sitting here tonight, anybody you know, make sure they go vote, because we don't want to have to pay for a study to find out what we can do to lower the taxes here, because we are all being affected by those taxes. Not only are we being affected by the taxes, we're being affected by OMU. So now we have increases in taxes, and we've got an increase in OMU. And so we've got to do something about the debt before we are overrun by it. So that's where I am. Thank you very much.
Bob Darling.
This question hit my sore point. The amount of debt that we're carrying in Owensboro is possibly, in my opinion, the largest debt per capita in the state. And I don't think we can increase very much of it. I don't know if you all remember, but about 2 years ago, my picture was on the front page of the Messenger Inquirer holding a sign that says, "Save Hillcrest." The city wanted to sell it because they needed the money for some other project. What they eventually wound up doing was raising taxes. The backside of my sign that you couldn't see said, "Is the city broke?" And I had a lot of people tell me, yeah, they think it is. The second thing, on a study, that's another sore point with me. We study everything. We pay these consultants. They come in, they make big money, they stay on the payroll, and we don't get a lot out of them. So while it would be good to take a look at this, I don't think just having a consultant come in would do it. And last but not least, I worked for about 15 years at the executive end of contract worker, and I understand hotels, I understand conventions, and if you start raising tax on those things, conventions won't come in, because they look at every penny that they have to spend to come in. So you may be getting a little bit of tax out of it, but you may be running things off in the long run. Thank you.
Joseph Martin.
Yes, we might have some money if we didn't have no concrete trees downtown. But us believe we need to bring in more business and companies in here, not small paying jobs. We don't need that. We need higher paying jobs, cost of living and everything. And like I say, I'm not for any tax increase because we need to get that city hall under control. I will cut some things that don't need to be there, and there's a lot of stuff going on that most people don't understand, but I see it every day, you know. How long will it take to fix our streets of the potholes? How long will it take to solve the problem of flooding? We still got flooding. Even though we build some basin for the flooding, it don't work. Thank you.
Andy Gamblin?
The study and everything, they just said it would cost $100,000. I would not be for that. We could go to Madisonville and talk to them. To me, I have to say, taxing the hotels or I don't think that's a good idea. I will say this, we do need to go to Frankfurt. But I will say also this, our state is in trouble too. And in fact, our government in trouble. And I know OMU, yes, they're raising our rates. In fact, I talked to a lady this morning, and of course, they operate with coal. And of course, coal is, there's war on coal right now, and we need to be, whoever gets on the city commission on November the 8th, yes, we do need to go to Frankfurt and let our leaders know, but we also need to let Washington know that, hey, we need to keep fighting for coal, because coal is the best electricity around here. And so we need to be pushing for coal and need to be looking for bringing high-tech jobs and need to be working with the unions to train our young people for these high-tech jobs. The job that's coming in now, I'm glad, but it's minimum wage job. A family cannot live off of minimum wage jobs. Right. We need high-tech jobs, and we need to work with the unions to bring them jobs. Thank you.
Okay, for the third question, we will start with Pam Smith-Wright. A couple of you have mentioned the fairness ordinance, and that's something that I would like for us to discuss further. Owensboro is rated one of the lowest communities in the nation on the diversity and inclusion scale. Many of our community's economic leaders will cite a lack of diversity as a threat to our economic well-being. Knowing this, would you support a local fairness ordinance which extends broad protections and prevents discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity in the areas of employment, housing, and public accommodations? Please explain why you wouldn't support this.
I served as the chairperson of the Owensboro Human Relations Commission for almost 12 years. And I've said this once and I'll say it again. I, being a person of color, knows exactly what it's like to be discriminated against. And so I am not for anyone being discriminated against. And so I brought up the idea of the fairness ordinance to the commission before, and we tabled it. But I am for that. My thing is this. I had asked the group of people who were attending our meetings to please give us some examples of how they had been discriminated against. And the sad part was no one gave me any examples. So that made people feel like, well, if they can't give you an example, then maybe it's not happening. But I do know that the Human Relations Commission is in favor of doing this, and I will support that because I do not think that we should discriminate against anyone.
Jay Vallada?
Apparently the numbers don't lie. We don't have enough diversity in Owensboro, and working with Sylvia Coleman with the Human Relations Commission over the last couple of years before I left my position with the city was absolutely a pleasure because I learned a lot about what goes on. I'm not really sure we have enough information, truthfully, because as Ms. Smith-Wright mentioned, there was a reach out to the community to say, where is it at? tell us what the problems are and the issues are, because that's where the citizens have to come in to give the indication that there is an issue. It was tabled. I don't know if that was the best answer, but maybe they didn't have enough information to make a good, honest decision. So I think what you have to do is dig a little deeper and maybe have some community outreaches or forums to get the information that's necessary and make a good, strong decision. You know, it doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be a how you say that word? Adversarial type situation. Yeah, let's do that one. Write that one down over there. And we don't have to fight about it. There you go. Thank you, Larry. But truthfully, you know, do we really have a problem? I don't know. I don't see it in my world, but I live in a different world than other people do. We all have our little networks and worlds that we live within. So is that truly a good way to gauge it? I think we need the data. I think we need the information. I think we need to make a good decision.
Joey Conley?
I'm absolutely for the fairness ordinance. I don't need data. If there is a possibility that somebody is going to be discriminated against, that's all I need. I also don't need data to know that we need a full, robust fire department. There is a possibility that there's fire, so by golly, we're going to be prepared for a fire. The same thing applies to the fairness ordinance. If there is a chance that somebody is going to be discriminated against, fired, denied housing, all because of who he or she is, that's not who we are as a community. That's not who we are, who we want to be. And if I were afraid that I would be fired for who I am, I'm certainly not going to go down to a televised commission meeting and say, hey, I'm getting choked up. I'm really not emotional. It's the tie. Yeah, I'm good. No, but if that were a situation I were in, I'm not going to go over my mouth about it. That would just be asking to be fired. For every straight person, there are legal protections federally, from the state, and from local governments to protect them for unlawful firing. But if you're a gay person, it's perfectly legal for them to just say, we don't want your kind here. I don't believe for a second that anybody who really understands this fairness ordinance would be against it. I do not need data. I do not need to know the horror stories that may go on. All I need to know is that our city is not doing enough to protect its taxpayers. You betcha I'm for the fairness ordinance. Thank you.
Mark Anthony Howard.
The fairness ordinance is a great start. However, I feel it's a shame we're still discussing equality in 2016. We're firmly into the 21st century here, and like I said before, deals between community and big business hinge on values. We must position ourselves so we are attractive to future business opportunities, convention traffic, and tourism. It is vital to be recognized nationally, regionally, even globally as being an open-minded, welcoming, warm community. It's time for Owensboro to take an official stance and outlaw discrimination based on sexual orientation, because it's the right thing to do. For the recognition of our peers, for future economic security and opportunity for our community, I am a strong proponent of the fairness ordinance and will vote for it any day. Thank you.
Teresa Thomas?
I want to say, first of all, that I didn't feel that there was an issue to have to even adopt this ordinance. But that was the naive side of me. I run a business in Philpott, and I had a couple that was very discriminated against in our community and found that they could not get married at their facility. So I found in my own home at work that it does actually happen here in Owensboro. And to me, I just am appalled to know that business owners would turn away anyone, regardless of race, gender, religion, anything. We're supposed to be making our businesses grow economically, and how can we do that if we're turning people away? That's the whole purpose of running a business. I also have heard that there are some businesses here in town that turn people away for actual employment. We can't do that. We're having a hard time to even fill positions right now currently in jobs that we have 840 jobs coming from Alorica. Could you imagine if they discriminated against someone? We have to get this put in act. I'm I'm going to say that it got tabled because there wasn't enough information. I have to say that because I was naive to it. So obviously, if they're not going to come to a commission meeting and tell what is going on, and I wouldn't go to a commission meeting, just like Joe Conley said. There was no way I would do that in front of people, and I would want to do it in a closed forum that would be kind of like this and discuss it if that's what needed to be done. So I am for the Fairness Ordinance Act. Thank you.
Bob Darling?
This is a tough question. It's a question whose time has probably come for Owensboro to at least have the conversation on it. Several years ago, I worked on the county with our smoking ordinance, and that took 5 years' worth of work before we could educate the public and get things in gear so the public would accept that ordinance. This is probably going to take time to have a conversation in the community. The only thing I can really say is I pledge that any ordinance that comes before me will get the same discreet effort to find out, A, is it needed? B, is it legal? Does it actually do what it says it does? We can't just be saying we're for an ordinance when we haven't physically seen what the ordinance is. You know, saying for a fairness ordinance, of course, everyone is for a fairness ordinance, but what does it physically say? Does it do its job? And I think that's a challenge for the community. There's going to be a lot of things coming down the pike that we're not even discussing tonight that we're going to have to take a look at. As chairman of the Neighborhood Alliances, we worked on the very first landlord ordinance because we had a lot of people that were out of state owned property here, and they weren't keeping the property up, and they were doing drugs in the house, and that was running the neighbors nuts. So we started that process. They talk about the landlord ordinance. I think that's something that really does need to be looked at, the new one.
Joseph Martin?
Yeah, I believe we had discrimination for over 100 years. I don't know why we need this little version of something for Owensboro when a lot of cities deal with it. San Francisco, they have more gays and that type of people. I'm not discriminating, but I'm just saying there's more population out there than here. I don't discriminate. You can discriminate by walking down the street saying something to somebody that they don't like. That's discrimination. When will it stop? You know, we got more problems than that little problem that I agree discrimination is wrong. But we have bigger problems than that. Thank you.
Andy Gamblin?
Discrimination is definitely wrong. There is a bigger picture out there, you know, about our debt. But to me, you know, if it came before the city commission, then we should look at it. And if someone is being discriminated against, you know, they shouldn't be, you know. And if it is going on, then, you know, then come to the city commission, talk to us, and to me, everybody needs to work together. You know, we may not agree, you know, we can agree and disagree on things, you know, but also you got to think about the those that are Christians too, you know. So you got to have a balanced table and everything, and that's why, you know, we just need to, like I say, we don't need to discriminate. That is definitely wrong, and just need to be working together.
Bob Glenn?
I think it's important to realize that if I walked up to you and told you Apple wanted to build a facility in Owensboro, Kentucky, or PayPal wanted to open a facility in Owensboro, Kentucky, and they just had one little question for the city fathers and the county leaders and even the governor, how do you treat your LGBTQ community? The answer would be disgraceful. And we would not get that plant because both the CEOs of PayPal and Apple happen to be gay. The bottom line is it's time for us to stop hiding our prejudices. It's a time for us to deliberate over this issue, have a community discussion, and vote it up or down. I teach at Owensboro Community and Technical College. I teach and interact with gay and transgender students every day. I cannot imagine diminishing their value as human beings by ignoring this issue and not bringing it up and discussing it. I was deeply deeply unhappy when this was tabled. I have had friends, colleagues, faculty members, and people say, well, there's no proof they've been discriminated against. Ask somebody how you've been treated when you've chosen to come out as gay or transgender. It takes a lot of courage. We are a progressive, loving, caring community. This is just another notch in our toolbox as a community economically and socially. We need to discuss it, we need to deliberate, and we need to show we truly are a caring community by bringing it up and voting it up or down. Because I think a fairness ordinance is a reasonable thing to discuss, because either everybody matters or nobody matters.
Larry Condor?
That was pretty good, Bob. It really was. You did about it. Hey, the question is framed in the fairness ordinance as far as economic development. Bob addressed that very well. Apple Computer or anyone else. Do they ask those questions? Yes, they do. They ask those questions. Would that be an issue for the city of Owensboro? Wouldn't that be a great issue to have, that someone as the size of Apple would ask Owensboro that question? But the answer better be right, if that question is ever answered. So I'll start this conversation off with this way. I'll go even on the other side, the spiritual side. We sing a song in church and it's titled, All Are Welcome. We sit there for an hour and we sing that song for an hour. So does that mean then the other 6 days, 23 hours that all are not welcome? Is that what that means? So from my perspective, people will tell me, well, it's not an issue. If it's not an issue, then pass it. If it is an issue, then pass it. I don't understand the logic when it comes to that. I truly don't. Because all are welcome. What we do, we have no rights to throw stones. No one in this room does. There was only one perfect person and we killed him. We have no rights to judge or do anything else from a religious standpoint. We have no rights to be able to say no to people, especially when they choose those type of lifestyles that are loving, that are caring lifestyles. There we go.
Okay, for the last question, we will start with Joey Connolly. And Teresa, you mentioned earlier in another question about the importance of voting, and I think everyone here, myself included, associated with this forum, certainly believes that's of great importance, and that's sort of where this question is going. The City Commission voted to eliminate primary elections this year without citizen input. The result is we have 5 candidates running for mayor instead of 2 in the general election, and we have 10 City Commission candidates vying for 4 spots. Do you see that as a positive development for ensuring we have an informed electorate? And would you vote for or against restoring primary elections? Joey Connolly.
Thank you. I think it was a noble, how it was decided wasn't noble, but I think the intent behind getting rid of the primary was noble in a way. It is very expensive to run a campaign. You have to beg for money, which is not something many of us are comfortable with. You have to figure out ways to get the resources you need in a small amount of time with no guarantee that the people who are giving you money will get to see your name on a ballot. I believe that was the reason why the primary was done away with, to try to make the financial burden less harsh for people who want to serve in elected office. And I think that goal is good and fair. I disagree with it being done without citizen input, because I don't really think anything should be done without citizen input. I think the intent behind it was good, but I think the results have not been good. It is very hard for all of us up here to explain to people who need to know where we stand on issues, because there's so many of us. There's so many voices that it's just becoming a den of people and names. So I think the idea to get rid of the primary was good in a way, but I don't think it has worked. I would not vote to keep a primary-less general election.
Mark Anthony Howard.
Of course, I'd be in favor of reestablishing the primary. I happen to agree with Joey in that the way it was dismantled was not exactly the most democratic process. It's important that the community is educated and engaged in the process of elections. An engaged electorate is crucial for a vibrant community which benefits everyone. Thank you.
Teresa Thomas?
I would definitely vote to have the primary back in. And the main reason for me, I understand the financial burden that it does have on all of us candidates if you're doing a primary and then you're doing the general. However, it's very tough when you're up here and you're talking and there's 10 of you. Obviously, we all have some of the same visions and thoughts, and as you're trying to educate yourself, you might think we're trying to piggyback off the next person, but our thought may be exactly what theirs is, and it's tough to say, well, I'm going to say the exact same thing that maybe, Larry Condor has said or Mark Howard has said. It makes us look like we're repeating things when really we're all out for some of the same causes. So I think that it would kind of deplete, it would narrow it down to the candidates who would best fit what the citizens are looking for. So yes, I would definitely vote for the primary to be back in to help the citizens not have such a confusing thing to who they need to vote for.
Bob Darling?
Well, maybe we can do this both ways. On years where we have presidential races, we do not have a primary so that the citizens don't have to listen to us for 6 months or 9 months to run. And on years that we don't have a presidential primary, then we could be out in front running in a primary. Because I think everybody's so tired of this election now that they don't even know what they're going to do. I would generally probably recommend that we go back to the primary system. When I ran the first time in 2004, we did have the primary, and that got it narrowed down to pretty good, because there's nothing to say we couldn't have 25 people run for city commission, and then what would you do? So, but I would just throw it out there, maybe kind of do 2 different ways in the future.
Joseph Martin?
Yes, I'm for the primary. That was a bad decision to get rid of it, because when you have a lot of people running, you narrow it down to the general election. But, a lot of people running for different things. It might not be for the really right reason, but you got to give them a chance to speak. And by having a primary, that will narrow it down to the best choices to be city commissioner. Thank you.
Andy Gamblin?
The primary, I don't think it was a bad thing, but then also, it does cost money. And so I would say put it before the public first, and then if the public says bring the primary back, then bring the primary back.
Bob Glenn?
Well, this was actually one of the more divisive, in quotes, issues. It wasn't divisive like we got angry at each other. It was a 3-2 vote if you go back and look at it, and both Mayor Tim Sanford and myself voted against it. And the reason we did so is I believe that democracy is served best when individuals are exposed and given a chance to voice their opinions and their vision for the community. And you lose that in the general election, particularly what if we'd had 16 or 17 candidates? I don't think you could have held this forum tonight, not in a practical manner. We're already kind of struggling as it is, Matt, with getting our answers in as it is. But I do think you give the public 2 opportunities to be exposed to the candidates and their views on issues. The other is that I think you encourage young people and different perspectives and groups of the community to run for office. And I think that's vitally important. We want to encourage women to run for office. We want to encourage minorities to run for office. And when you take that primary away, you only give them 1 opportunity. And it's really hard in the general election, because by that time you've got to have the money, you've got to have the funding, you've got to have the resources to hit the ground running. And a lot of people don't, but the primary gives them that training wheel opportunity. As a Neighborhood Alliance chair, we hosted one year when there were 16 candidates, whittled down to 8 with the help of the primary. Thought it was a great process. Had a lot of good people run for office. So I think that democracy is richer, our community is better with a primary than without it.
Larry Condor?
Thank you, Matt. I think that the primary does need to be brought back. But I would like to suggest, we've talked about going to Frankfort to make certain changes for our community and advocating for us. And this is one of the areas where I think we need to also address with Frankfort. And you may say, well, what are you really talking about? Here's the deal. You know, city commissioners are 2 years. So you sit here and you have a primary. You'll go through that in May timeframe, then you go through the summertime, then you go through here in the fall, then you get trained, then you put in the system, and then you go through 6 months of that. 12 months later, then we're starting again, is what you're doing. And so sometimes your time gets very compressed in what that is. So I would love the primary to come back, but I'd love to see the terms for the city commissioner be changed. Not just 2, but 4, but alternated in between the mayor, okay, by doing so. Then I think the issues of cost, time, and everything else gets addressed for everyone involved, whether it be an individual wanting to run that's even 24, 22 years old, whatever the case may be. But the term of our city commissioners need to be adjusted, people. It truly does. Because you can't come down that learning curve very fast and learning what our city really does before you're out campaigning and hitting the doors again and you see way too many signs for way too long.
Pam Smith-Wright.
I'm one of the ones that voted against the primary, and the reason being is, I think it was mentioned a minute ago, is the expense. For some of us who don't have a lot of money, or we don't have people to donate, having a primary and you put signs out and people destroy your signs, you have to go back, ask people for money to put more signs out. Then in the fall, you have to do that all over again. And running for public office should not be about who has the most money. It's about who has this community at heart. And so if you look across this table, we didn't have a primary. Look, we've got all these people, so I don't think you need a primary to bring people out to vote, to run. And also, look at the situation that we're having in our country right now with 2 people running for president. Wouldn't it be nice if we had more choices for us to choose from at this point? So, having a primary, if you've never been in this situation, it's easy for you to say that we should have a primary. But come run for office and then think about it. Thank you.
Jay Vallata.
Can you just say ditto? I probably shouldn't say that. I think we probably should look at the primaries maybe coming back. I say that. I've not been in an elected office before, so I truly don't know the process, but I have to agree with Larry. Once we get settled in and you start working in the role of city commissioner, you're just about getting ready to start running another campaign again. So does it make economic sense? Probably not. Is it practical? No, maybe we need to look at the adjustment of a term and possibly do alternating terms at the state or federal level. That's a great way for us to get experience and get in there. Those of us that want to continue to participate. If I don't make it this time, I plan to run again. Now, is it going to be through a primary process? And is that the answer? I don't know. But I do believe we probably need to be a little more democratic about it in making our decisions, and hopefully we'll get good results by getting the qualified people up here that want to participate and bring out the good stuff. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to closing statements now, and as I said at the beginning, we will start at the end with Mark Anthony Howard, work our way back around and finish with Joey Connolly. 60 seconds.
I believe in servant leadership. Serving always comes before leading. It's my belief that Owensboro progresses under a flag of unity, love, and compassion. We are a stronger city when we are unified. When all citizens are informed, when all citizens make decisions together as one, not only does it stoke the fires of democracy and inevitably breeds future servant leaders with like-minded, community-oriented philosophies. Community suffers when government is run like a business. I've always been positive. I see the good in the world. I vow to look forward and not get bogged down by the past. I vow to be pragmatic and informed with working families' best interests at heart. I'd like to be the first millennial to have a seat on the board, giving voice to a generation lacking one in local government, but growing every day. Thank you. Again, I'm Mark Anthony Howard. I'll be the last position on the ballot, and I ask for your consideration and support in November 8th. Regardless, though, just go out and vote. Thank you.
Teresa Thomas.
Again, I'm Teresa Thomas, and I'm number 1 on the ballot, so please remember when you go out, number 1. I think the secret of change is to focus all of our energy not fighting the old, but building the new. And to me, that's very important, because we keep talking about the taxes, and we've got to build new here in our community, and we've been doing a great job with the past city commission and mayor. I would love to see our youth get more engaged, because as we move forward, we have our youth more engaged, and they will be wanting to come back to our community. We also need to find ways to get jobs here that are higher paying jobs, and that those jobs want to come here because of, number 1, we've heard tonight, the Fairness Ordinance Act, just making sure, because those are questions that are asked when they're looking. Another thing is, can you fulfill our needs? Can you get employees to work at our place of employment? And sometimes at $8.40 and $10 an hour, that's not going to do it. We've got to get some higher paying jobs in here. And I know the EDC is working extremely hard on that, along with the chamber. So I appreciate your vote come November the 8th. I'm number 1 on the ballot, Teresa Thomas. Thank you.
Bob Darling.
I'm Bob Darling. I'm asking for your vote. I'm number 2 on the ballot. A few years ago, one of the reporters for the Messenger Inquirer called me a community activist, and that's the best term I've ever heard for me. That's what I've tried to do in my 18 years of volunteering in this community, is to get the community active and improving Owensboro. We have to get more money. We have to keep more money out in the community so the citizens can have their wants and their needs met. This is a difficult election going on. Let's hope everything turns out all right. But Owensboro is on the cusp of some great things, but it also has great challenges, the debt and everything else, and we have to work on it. Thank you.
Joseph Martin.
As your city commissioner, I will listen to your ideas and concern. I will be a watchdog for the city. This is not a part-time job for me. It's a full-time. This be the only job I will have. I ask for your vote on November 8th. You haven't seen nothing yet. Thank you.
Andy Gamblin.
Again, I want to thank the chamber. I want to thank the school. I want to thank Dr. Brake and them for opening up this facility. This is what America is all about, to listen to all of us. And there's a lot of good candidates on here. Some may have disagreements, and some may disagree on how to do things. I am concerned about our city. Our city is good. I mean, I will say that. Downtown looks wonderful, but we are in debt. We got streets that need to be repaired. And the senior citizen, we need to take care of our senior citizens. We just need to, we can do better, but we need to be, this is our money that we are dealing with. We need to watch how we spend our money. And if we need to go to Frankfurt, we need to go to Frankfurt and let them know that we need help. Because like I said, our state's in trouble too. And we all have to work together. And just remember on November the 8th, vote number 4, and you'll have a fighter that will work.
Bob Glenn.
I also want to thank Owensboro Public Schools, Owensboro High School, the Chamber, and the Neighborhood Alliance for hosting us tonight. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve you for nearly the last 4 years as one of your city commissioners. We've been a part of an incredible renaissance in the history of Owensboro, Kentucky. I have enjoyed serving you, but more importantly, I think what I bring to the table is I'm a good listener, I'm a hard worker, I do the extra research. I checked out the tax increment finance districts to see if those ideas work for Owensboro. They do. They allow us to continue to progress. But more importantly, we certainly have challenges. We're going to need to address issues related to OMU, RWRA, economic development. We need to improve our workforce development ratio, the percentage of people who are ready to work. But more importantly, what we need to do is continue to promote economic development, because when there's a rising tide, it lifts all boats. And that's the most essential thing we can do to bring young people back, to provide a community that's safe and welcoming for seniors as well as our veterans, and to continue to move Owensboro forward. So I hope on November 8th you'll give me that opportunity. I'm number 5 on the ballot.
Larry Conder.
Thank you, Matt. One of the things that probably needs to be recognized are these people that are sitting up here. Everyone needs to recognize that they put themselves out there in doing this, and they do. It is not an easy task to do this. But in my closing statement, I would like to propose this. About 7 or 8 years ago, we as a community had a day that was called, I believe, We the People, that we gathered to talk about all these things of the whats. What I'd like to do is do it again. Let's bring it back and have a lot of other people pay for it. I don't even think the city or county would have to pay for it, that we could raise enough money to do it. So if we really want the public to be involved, and some people might say, oh, that's just a stunt. Well, no, it's not. It's your opportunity to say what you want to and to guide this city further. There's a passion I have for our community, and I will never stop regardless of what I do. We need to make sure that we move this passion to Frankfort. We now have a time to be leveraged with Frankfort, with also Washington, D.C. We can do it. All we have to do is make sure that the critical thinking occurs, and she won't give me other people's time to do this. So thank you very much.
Pam Smith Wright.
I would like to thank all the parties that had anything to do with putting this forum together. Thank you for the opportunity. Most of all, I want to thank the citizens of Owensboro who have felt that I was the person you have put in office for the last 6 years. I hope that you feel that I've done a great job, and I ask that you will allow me to continue what we have started. I want you to know that my door has always been open and always will continue to be open, and I am here to serve the citizens of this community. And so I would appreciate your vote on November the 8th, and I'm number 7 on the ballot. Thank you.
Jay Villano.
Thank you to the Chamber and Public Schools and everybody that made this forum a possibility tonight. I guess when I hear everybody that's coming down the line, I hear a lot of the same things, but and there's a lot of passion up here. These folks have, again, like Larry said, put it out there for you. I have a passion for this community. I've worked with a lot of you in this room that I saw before the lights went down, and maybe a few more came in, but it's always a pleasure to work with some of the most dynamic people in this community to keep things moving forward. We always like to throw a big party, and I've been proud to be part of a lot of organizations that have been able to bring interest to the city, to the riverfront, and all throughout the community. I'm going to dig in every day and keep working hard for you guys because I do love my community, and I want Owensboro to be even more than what it is now. We've got a great community. We can keep moving this thing forward. But we got to have some things to help us get there, and that's supporting the folks that keep us moving each and every day. We got to keep bringing in great jobs. We got to keep working hard, and hard work's something I'm used to. I work every day, I promise, and I want to bring my enthusiasm, my passion, my professionalism. I want to be your city commissioner. I'm number 8 on the ballot, and I would appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
And Joey Connolly.
Thank you. You know, I was dedicating my life to growing my talents and passions right here in Owensboro. Many years ago, I was the worst bass player Owensboro High School ever saw, right here on the stage, and I'm proud to say that my skills have not improved. I spent my 20s working for the city of Owensboro in the Parks Department, and I've spent what I've lived through of my 30s teaching English at Kentucky Wesleyan College, where I can mentor young people and see them grow. I want to be a commissioner so that they can have a place in Owensboro to grow who they are and what they want to do. Like I said in my opening statements, I want to balance business interests with human interests. A city is more than just its spreadsheets and financials. A city is a living, breathing entity, and it's made up of people who spend their lives raising their families, dedicating who they are to the communities they live in. I want to make sure that is honored and grown in any way I can. I'm Joey Connolly. Hopefully you'll remember me on Tuesday. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for being here tonight and participating. As Bob said, I know it's difficult when there's that many people on the stage, but I think you did a nice job of getting your message out there, and I've done a lot of these things, and most of the time I'll ask a question and the answer will come back and it will be not remotely close to the question I asked. And that didn't happen tonight, and I think the voters are better off for that. So I appreciate that, and thank you for being here. For those of you who were here for the City Commission Forum, this will be, the format will be very similar. We will go the same way with opening statements from each candidate. Those will be 60 seconds. I will ask 5 questions. Each candidate will answer every question. They will have 90 seconds to do so. and then we will close with 60-second closing statements. Just as it was with the City Commission, the candidates are seated on stage in order that they appear on the ballot, and that's kind of how we'll work our way down through each question. So for openings, Neil Johnston will start, we'll work our way down, and then when we come back for the first question, it will be Tom Watson, second question, Doug Hoyt, and so forth. And then we will, as we work our way down, whoever is next in order, and I'll let you know that, we'll start the closing statements. Again, for those of you who were here for the last forum, some of these questions will be very similar. I think 3 of the questions are the same. We have 2 new questions, but we want to find out how the mayoral candidates feel just the same way we did the city commission candidates. Right. So we will start with, I should point out, Jacqueline Graves is keeping time. She will hold up cards and let you know, give you a 30-second warning, and keep you updated on where you're at with that. So with that, if we are ready to get started, we will do our opening statements with Neil Johnston, 60 seconds.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. Once again, this is our 3rd time being able to speak to the public. It's a pleasure to be able to have you sitting in front of us, and I can see faces. I think before it was a little dark, but now I can see, and there's many of you out here that I know, and I appreciate your involvement in this process. Thank you, the Chamber, and all the other entities that supported this. This is actually the first time I've been back in Owensboro High School since 2008 when I was elected class president. So it's a kind of unique and surreal experience, and a lot of situations occurred at that point in time in my life. I'm running for this race for you, the people, for your families. This is an opportunity Owensboro has to make a change, to get away from the same old status quo, stagnant in the water type of environment and government leadership. We have lots of obstacles to face, and we're going to talk about some of them tonight. You can get online, you can get on social media, and you can see a lot of our answers and solutions to the problems. So make sure that you're informed, and make sure you go vote November 8th more than anything.
Tom Watson.
Hello, Matthew.
Hello.
Nice to have you back. What am I doing now?
You're giving your opening statement.
Oh, okay. I thought I was answering the question. I'm sorry, my bad. Well, welcome to OHS. I'm a graduate of OHS, and if you go on the second floor landing, you can see a little plaque for a Lifetime Hall of Achievement for Tom Watson. So my opportunity to run again just humbles me so much, it's unreal. I believe that as an elected official, there are 3 or 4 criteria that you must adhere to. First being public safety. Without public safety, we have no order. Second being, we need a sustained economic development and growth. Third being, controlled spending. And the 4th being, work towards a balanced budget. That's what we did before when we came in with a $2.1 million deficit, and we left them with over $9 million in the surplus. That's what we need to make our community grow, and I vow to do the same thing I did last time and make this community as good as it can be. Thank you.
Doug Hoyt.
Thank you to everybody for coming out tonight. Thank you for all the sponsors who have put this program together. The Chamber has proven to be very good to us as candidates and offering us many opportunities to get our voices heard. I especially want to say thank you to my wife, who has endured this campaign with me, and that has not necessarily always been the easiest thing. My wife and I have 2 children and 4 grandchildren, and that's the primary reason that I'm running for mayor. I want to make this community the very best it can be so that they, their children, and their grandchildren can live here, can have good careers here, and can be here for the rest of their lives. Thank you.
Jeff Sanford.
I also would like to thank you guys for coming out tonight to listen to us. I'm Mayor Pro Tem Jeff Sanford, and my wife is also here tonight. She's endured pretty much over my journey, which started about 8 years ago. And, I came into office 6 years ago, and What I've seen in this community and the changes that I've seen, I can't be more proud of. I have seen a new attitude about this city. There's people visiting Owensboro from all over the country. We just had a delegation from Louisville, Kentucky come in today to see how we're doing the things we do. People are envying Owensboro. You know, I was just looking over the last 6 years. We've created over 3,700 new jobs. We've got a 4% unemployment rate. We have record tax receipts just this year, about $163,000. Thank you.
David Crane. Again, I'd like to mirror what everyone up here has said. Thanks for coming out tonight. I know you could have been anywhere else, home watching TV, taking care of your kids. A lot of us got work tomorrow, school tomorrow, so definitely very, very much appreciate you taking the time out to come down and listen to us. If it's your first time to something like this, you're going to have a lot of new answers, new responses, things you haven't heard from us. If you've been to a couple of these before, you're probably going to hear some of us say the same things. Not necessarily a bad thing. Looking forward to the questions, and hopefully we can give you some decent answers that you'll be satisfied with before you leave tonight. Thank you.
Tom, we will start the questions with you. You'll answer the first question. And you mentioned public safety in your opening, and just a coincidence, that's what this question is. So a safe city is one of Owensboro's most treasured amenities. The Owensboro Police Department has been a national leader in creating an educated, community-oriented police force. Budget cuts, however, are leading to a situation where salaries are falling behind other agencies and workloads are increasing. Adding to the problem, recruiting new officers continues to be a challenge. What can or should the mayor do to reverse this trend?
Well, having been endorsed by the FOP Tuesday night, I can promise you one of the first things we'll do in our administration is trying to address these problems. I've spoken to many, many police officers, and they love their job, and they're ready to continue to serve this community. I think until you really get in there, you can't really tell all the things that have been done financially to the community, you know, plus and minus. A lot of fund balances have been swept to try and plug holes. So the difficulty will be trying to figure out where the money is and how to figure out how we can best serve the community and public safety. But I've pledged my whole world, just about, because I think that the public safety is the most important thing. Trying to create an income that will compensate them for what they do is very difficult. So we'll look at things like property taxes, we'll look at things that have been used in the past to create what salaries that can be commensurate with what they do. It's a tough job, and we have lost at least 4 officers to the Sheriff's Department in the last several years. And these are good guys, and Sheriff Kane's happy to have them. It costs the city a lot of money to train these guys for them to up and leave once they get a little bit frustrated with the chain of command in the police department. So hopefully we can give some dialogue, some communication, and open up lines of communication with City Hall to address their problems and try and find revenue to help them out. Thank you.
Doug Hoyt.
Thank you. This is a subject that, quite frankly, is very close to us. Our son is a sergeant with Owensboro Police Department, has been for 11 years, and we live each and every day with the trials and tribulations that the police department endures. But I want to make it very clear that it is not just the police department, it's public safety in general, all first responders. But specifically with regard to the police department, I think one of the things that is such a travesty is that we have a department the size of Owensboro Police Department. Officers can go to much smaller departments like Madisonville, Paducah, and at any rank, they can earn $5,000 to $6,000 a year more. It's just absolutely a travesty that we would let that happen. Now, I hear this all the time, and they talk about annual pay raises. I think that is attempting to Band-Aid a problem. we've got to understand the root cause, and I think we have to do some benchmarking. We have to understand what departments of similar size offer in terms of benefits, in terms of pay, base pay, and we have to create a solid plan, a pay and benefits plan that addresses these issues and gets the pay in line where it needs to be, not just for the police department, but also for the fire department and other services, first responder services.
Jeff Sanford?
I think that, we need to increase their salaries, and I do know that, and I will do that, but I think there's another component to this too. It's also about listening to them and taking the time and talking, and I think that will alleviate a lot of the problems. They are being paid less than other communities, and I'm very aware of that because I've talked to many of them myself, and we need to address that, and that will be addressed. But we also have to take our time to listen to them, and I think that's one thing that we can do a better job of. And as others have said up here, you've got the first responders, and you have the firefighters also. These guys, they put their lives on the line for us every day. So we need to do a better job as commissioners and mayors of listening to their concerns. And that's one thing I'd like to do. And I, too, have been endorsed by the professional firefighters during this election. But pay is one thing, but I think another thing, a lot of times people just wanted to know that you care. And I think that's a disconnect that we've had lately, is we're not showing communication that we care. And I think that would solve a lot of problems if we just do a better job of listening to our firefighters and all of our first responders and our police officers. Thank you.
David Crane?
Yeah, well, definitely I would agree. Firefighters aren't paid quite what they should be. Police aren't paid quite what they should be. We would definitely love to give those people some more money. But when you talk about public safety, I think it's a bigger sphere than just police, fire, and first responders. Health department's part of that. Some of the medical requirements you have as a school-age child, part of public safety. Making sure the sewers work properly so we don't have sewage backing up to our homes, public safety. Flood control. A lot of people look at some areas that haven't quite been improved as much as we would have liked them to have worked. The plan thought it would work this way, didn't quite work out, so we used to have some flooding issues. Stagnant water, mosquitoes, a lot of diseases, mosquito-borne. That's public safety. I think I would like to see a larger, big picture of all the public safety elements that come into play, not just the most visible ones. And see if we could find some funding out there for public safety as a whole, and then redistribute that as we need it. If we need to pay a little more for the officers to retain higher, better qualified, better trained officers, then definitely do that. I think we're blessed that we don't have the problem in our police department that you see on the internet, that you see in a lot of bigger cities. But we can always do better. No one would deny that everyone can do better. I mean, I'm sure when the Cubs look back on their films, they're going to say, we could have done better in that game too. So there's always room for improvement, and we need to work towards that.
Neil Johnston?
With public safety, it's very important. Obviously, it's a core value of what the government essentially is here to do, and that is to maintain peace and allow you to live your life and freely and peacefully. Spoken with many police officers and fire department workers, and the biggest thing that you hear and complain from them is they don't feel valued, they're underappreciated, they're underfunded, and they're undersupported. And, a lot of the current administration has done a lot of not listening and just acting. And it's more to it than just going and listening. You have to have action behind those, just sitting there with your ears open and your eyes open. They need an increase, that's for certain. If you can go to Madisonville, a size of town that's a third, a fourth of what Owensboro is, and you can get a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 raise, and the crime rates are lower, and the way of life is a lot easier, and the cost of living is lower, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't think that makes a lot of sense to anyone inside of our city. Also dealing with, and that's the same way with the fire department. But our Owensboro public school teachers as well, working with teachers, and they're part of public safety because they're working with the students. They're working with the children. They're with them more than anyone else is. And they're, once again, underappreciated as well. If you increase pay, you increase competition. That allows you to vet harder. That allows you to get a better product. And as a city, we need to make sure that we are taking care of those individuals who are affecting our lives at a large capacity.
For the second question, Doug Hoyt, you will go first, and I want to talk a little bit about debt and how we're going to pay for that. And I asked this question in the commission forum, and I think we got a little off track on focusing more on how the study was going to be paid for than what we were actually talking about here. So what I want to talk about is, obviously, the city does have a growing debt issue. Revenue projections are not coming in where they were expected. Additional debt service is going to be coming. In the past, with things like Hillcrest, Bluegrass Museum, we've relied on net profits tax, occupational tax, those taxpayers to kind of foot the bill. So if, say, the EDC and the Chamber were to put together a free study, would you commit to that study to determine how to best move forward on taxes and paying down the debt rather than simply placing additional burdens on the occupational and net profits taxpayers? And if not, what will you do to specifically address this issue? Doug Hoyt.
Thank you. Yes, any study is valuable. You have to understand the cost benefit of a study. If it's free, certainly I'm willing to engage in that. I think there's many communities of similar size, greater size, smaller size that we can benchmark against and we can learn some lessons from. Our community has some issues. You know, we are at something of a crossroads at this point. We have taken on a significant amount of debt with the promise that that debt's going to be retired with certain tax increases in revenue sources that have been increased, occupational tax, net profits tax, and so on. Some of those sources are not producing the revenue that they were intended to produce or they were projected to produce, and therefore we have a bit of a problem, a dilemma. And like it or not, it is much like your household. If you don't have enough money to pay the bills, you have to make some decisions. Quite frankly, some of the things that are being reported in the paper tell us that we don't have enough revenue to support the debt that we have. We've got to create some new growth to this community, some growth that is career-oriented, some growth that is sustainable and long-term and increases revenues to the community, or we're going to be in very serious condition in the not-too-distant future. A study, yes. Benchmarking, it is one thing that is absolutely essential. I would support that.
Jeff Sanford.
I would also support that. I think we need to look at all the revenue sources, but I will say this. I do have some numbers here that the revenue actually is coming in better than expected. Since 2010, our revenue is up 16%. I just looked at this the other day on occupational tax from 2010 to 2016. And the first 3 months of this calendar year, we're up about $163,000 in the first 3 months. So if we keep that trend, that would be around $700,000 that we're up. So why are we up? Well, if you go back here and you look why you're up because you added 3,700 new jobs and you have a 4% unemployment rate. Is that going to get the whole thing? I'm not sure. Maybe not. And if it doesn't, that's when we need to sit down with the Chamber and the EDC and maybe some other people and look at some options, what we need to do. But you know what? You have to invest in yourself before other people will invest in you. If we wouldn't have invested in these things, we wouldn't have $1 billion in private investment over the last 8 years. Those are the things that we need to look at. We always look at the debt, but you also have to look at the revenue side too. And the revenue that I'm seeing and I get reported on is it's actually up. If it was going the other way, I would be really, really concerned. But over these last 3 months, I'm seeing good numbers right now, which I'm encouraged by. Thank you.
Daniel Crane. Yeah, if it's a free study, it's not going to cost the taxpayers, you betcha. Sure, let's do that all day long, twice on Sunday. Many free studies as we can get. I remember Not too long ago, we did a study on the water treatment plant, and we did another study, and the thing that stuck with me most with these studies is each one costs in the six figures. I think the three I looked at were about $200,000 a pop. Give or take, I don't remember the exact number. Get a little older. Remember, it doesn't serve me as well. But I'm looking at that thinking to myself, wow, if we do 5 studies, that's $1 million. Right down the ground. Gone. $1 million we could have used to pay those police officers a little extra pay. To maybe work a lunch program for kids who don't get the breakfast during the summertime. Because I know there's kids out here that the only time they get breakfast is when school's in session. So many things we could have done with that money, but we do a study after study, and then we just take the study and push it to the side. Teresa, when she was here, city commissioner, she mentioned, we have almost a library downtown about studies. That's a lot of studies, and that's a lot of money. That's a lot of your dollars that have been spent for studies that haven't been acted on. We get a study, and we just kind of leave it. I'm not saying that we don't act on some of them, but the bulk of them, it seems we're just throwing money out the window. So if free studies can come about, I'm all for that, because it doesn't cost anyone anything. Thank you.
Neil Johnston.
First off, we hear a lot of numbers, and are those numbers factual or are they false? Second thing is, going back to the first responders and public safety, I didn't get to put this part in, but with the ambulance, that should be a part of our city. Individuals are going to the hospital, they're paying $600 an ambulance ride. If that's so profitable, maybe that's something our city should capitalize on. But, they speak about the fairness ordinance. If you're going to get somebody, a big business here, as they were saying with the commissioners with Apple and so forth, they're going to want to know about fairness. And as far as, are we a progressive city? Another thing is you can streamline the business procedures to where you're increasing that tax base where people are making money at 2 and 3 weeks as they start, not 8 weeks later. Another thing is entertainment. Speaking with individuals who own property right beside the Kmart on West Parish, that is a very prime spot, and the property is not that expensive to where we can purchase that as a city. We can get private investors, which we already have some that are already interested, and we can build an arena. And that's something that people talk about. We spent all that money on the convention center that brings no revenue to our city on the money that we spent. Here's another thing. We're at 16%, as far as our revenue is up, but our debt is up 500% from that time. And we've also had a $1.5 million budget deficit. So we can talk about revenue going up, but once again, to the household, you have X, this is what you make, this is what you can spend. If you spend more than that, guess what? You're in debt. You're going to be in trouble, things are going to occur. It's using common sense. It's bringing common sense back into the government and allowing the people to actually hear what's going on.
Tom Watson.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously the debt concerns me greatly. If any of you would bother to get on the internet and look at the last work session for this current city commission, when the city manager, Bill Perry, said at the current pace, this is unsustainable. There was not one remark from any of the people on the commission. They dropped their head, didn't say, how come, where are we going to, how did we get here? Crickets all the way around. People are, generally speaking, are entitled to their own opinions. They're just not entitled to their own facts. According to the state workforce cabinet, employees covered by unemployment insurance. In my 4-year term, we created 2,800 jobs. In the last 8 years, 1,100 jobs. Our annual income rose $4,600. In the last 8 years, $5,100. So you're entitled to your own opinion, but the facts are the facts. The secret to reducing this debt is quality economic growth. And until we can find the formula that can get quality economic growth with career opportunities in our community, we're going to struggle with this debt. Because I'm not so sure that if you build your economy on tourism in a city that's very difficult to get to, how are you going to dig yourself out of this hole? And at the end of 4 years, the projected debt for the city commission was $17.1 million, and the entire commission voted for it. Thank you.
Third question, we will start with Jeff Sanford, and this will be the same question I asked the city commission for about the fairness ordinance. I'll repeat, Owensboro is rated one of the lowest communities in the nation on the diversity and inclusion scale. many of our community's economic leaders cite a lack of diversity as a threat to our economic well-being. Knowing this, would you support a local fairness ordinance which extends broad protections and prevents discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity in the areas of employment, housing, and public accommodations? Please explain why you would or wouldn't support this.
What I would support, and what I've supported in the past, is when this first came up, I sat in a room with one side of the issue and, talked about it, took several questions, and at that time, I couldn't be given any examples where discrimination was happening. So at that point, I don't think that it does it any good to do something when I'm not seeing any problems. Not to say there's not, but what I would like to do, I would like to set up a round table. I like to hear from both sides. I like to see what both sides have to say. And I think when you get a room, roll up your sleeves, and you get different opinions from both sides of both sides, and you can come up with a conclusion. Do you need it? Do you not? Is it going to? Does it have any teeth in it? Is it going to work for your community? Will it work for this community? And that's the things we need to find out. But we need to listen to everyone. We need to listen to both sides, and I think that's the best case scenario is just to give people a chance to communicate, sit down, and let them talk. I've already been through that once, and I didn't hear any conclusive evidence that we needed it. But I'm absolutely willing to listen to both sides. Thank you.
David Crane.
Yeah, I'd definitely be in support of the fairness ordinance, whether it comes in multiple components, one single component, it evolves into the form of maybe a landlord-tenant agreement. Personally, I don't believe there's two sides, because if you look at two sides, there's those who are discriminated against and the discriminators. Okay, that's the side you don't want to listen to, the discriminators. I know, I would like to think, Owensboro's my home. I'm 4 generations in this town. I have some deep roots. Family was here back when there were dirt roads on 2nd Street. I'm hoping my son stays here, that we make it a nice enough place and he's 5th generation stays here. People would look at me and think, what does Dave know about discrimination? He's white. He's heterosexual. Blue eyes. He had brown hair before I went bald. But there have been times in this city. One particular instance, everyone says they need an instance. Here's an instance, Veterans Day last year, I got spit on 3 times. I was wearing my uniform, I was going to a local elementary school, and someone, oddly enough, in a Che Guevara shirt, which is a great sign of freedom, came up and decided that my militant attire was just too oppressive for them, and they decided to express their opinion in a bodily fluid manner. So I know, unfortunately, discrimination does exist in our town. And I hate to use the cliche, but it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. I know our LGBTQ people have a much harder life than I do. So yes, fairness ordinance.
Neil Johnston.
I think I've stated this already before. I am for a fairness ordinance that allows people to pursue happiness. Obviously, I need to see the exact details. I'm not just going to say, yeah, I'm for it, and then that's an open piece of paper, and you can write whatever you want on it. That would be, that's a lack of common sense and maturity. But yes, it's 100% we should be allowing folks to have that pursuit of happiness, and we shouldn't be impeding on their rights. But obviously, with those crowds, sometimes you get people that they're frustrated, they're angry, and they have a right to be that way because they're discriminated against in ways that they shouldn't be. Obviously, that's a big situation inside of our country. Stereotyping is one thing, discriminating against someone is a different. Everyone uses stereotypes. We all have that inside of our system. That allows us to keep us safe from certain harms and allows us to use good common sense. But religiously, in my faith, obviously, you talk about the LGBTQ crowd. That's not something that I truly believe in. But with my faith, I want to set that aside for our government and for our ability to increase our tax base and the ability to bring business here and allow individuals, which our country is the free country, that's what we put ourselves on, allow them to pursue their happiness. So, we're not going to table it. We're not going to continue to stay there. We're going to proceed to move forward and be progressive. Either we can stay back in 1960, or we can be in 2016 and we can continue to move forward.
Tom Watson.
Thank you, Mayor. He's always got to get the age every time. It's amazing. You know, when I was mayor before, David Kelly ran the Human Relations Commission. Not one time in 4 years did he come to me and tell me that we had an issue like that. I believe a mayor should try and unite the community, not divide the community. In almost every instance when this issue was brought up, it divided the community. Religious right, civil activists on the left, and it did a lot of harm to a lot of good people. You know, the fairness ordinance, you know, addresses many, many things. And being an amputee for 40-something years, I've been discriminated against. And I didn't look for an ordinance to try and fix it. Now, having said that, I'm looking at data. And if there's a real incident where there's harm being done to our citizens, I will do everything I can to find a remedy to try and fix the problem. But I need to see data, and I'm willing to talk to anybody about it to see just exactly where we stand as a community on this discrimination issue.
Doug Hoy.
Thank you. I have said on many occasions that it saddens me greatly that we have to even remotely consider legislating respect for one another. And that's where I stand on this issue. It saddens me greatly. It has recently been brought to my attention that some of my comments are perceived as being against a fairness ordinance. I want to say unequivocally, I am for fairness. But I'm also going to state unequivocally that words mean something. There is an ordinance that has been tabled currently with certain words on a piece of paper. That's not necessarily an ordinance that has been brought before me as mayor and a commission that I'm part of. And as mayor, when an ordinance is brought to me and the words are on that piece of paper, they will be given due scrutiny. They will be reviewed. They will be considered. And at that time, when those words are on the paper, those words mean something, I will be better informed and be better able to understand, is that ordinance properly implementing fairness in this community?
Okay, we will move to the fourth question. That Crane, you will start. This will go back to the primary election. And as you know, the City Commission voted to eliminate the primary election this year. They did so with little to no citizen input on that. And what we're left with is 5 candidates for mayor, 10 candidates for city commissioner, battling to get their voice out. Do you see this as a positive for ensuring an informed electorate, and would you vote for or against restoring primary elections?
Personally, not a big fan of the primaries. And that being said, it should be left up to the public to decide. Granted, we can't set up here with 20 people all vying for the same application, because that's what this is. We're job applying, doing a verbal job interview. Can't have that many people up here, physically not possible. In those instances, I would probably say it might be needed. However, if you just want to delve it down to 2 people for mayor, Republican and a Democrat, I think that does a great disservice to the people at home. There's independents, there's third parties, there's people who don't identify with any political party, and they want their voice heard. Not having a primary also doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. You got to pay the poll workers, you got to pay the accounting service that verifies the election results. Kids are out of school, parents got to find babysitters. You know, there's a lot of hidden cost as well as literal cost in a primary. I think when you have a small number, 5 for mayor, it's a good choice. Maybe at the city commissioner level with 10, that might be too many. I don't know. That's not for me to say right now. I think that's a decision that people should make whether they want to have a primary. I don't think 3 or 4 people on the commission should just decide amongst themselves, yay or nay. It should be put to a public vote. I think it's worked out well, especially
in my case, I have pretty much no budget. And it's a shoestring thing going on, and it has saved a lot of money, like Cameron Smith mentioned. So it's beneficial to get more candidates. Thank you.
Neil Johnston?
Well, that's a tough question on a lot of different, for a lot of different reasons. First off, our town has always been kind of the good old boy system. It allows people to, you know, if you have money, it helps. And so not having a primary helps a guy that doesn't have money necessarily to get his voice out there and allow people to hear his ideas. And people rally behind that. As you've seen with some of the individuals here, if we had a primary, we had a two-man race instead of having 5 men up here. But I would be for bringing the primary back, but having the spot for 2 independent individuals, and they would have to have, you know, 200, 300 people sign a petition stating that they support them. So it's something that you want to speak with the individuals in our city and the citizens and allow you to actually have to say on who you want to represent you and how they would go about it as a city. But I would be all in favor of bringing back the primary. Even though this has been beneficial to me as an individual, I would be for bringing it back.
Tom Watson?
Thank you, Matt. Well, I've done it both ways. Last time I ran, we had 4 very solid candidates for mayor. We had a primary, whittled it down to 2, had a couple of months off, and outmanaged the county judge executive. I had 20-something debates, some of them in front of 400, 500, 600 people with the executive in the book. Now we've gone to no primary, which is a definite advantage to anybody that's already elected to those offices. There's no question about that. It gives anybody that's an incumbent a definite advantage. And in this year's election, we had about 60 days, maybe Labor Day to election day, for the community to vet the candidates. And the problem is, the top of the ticket in Washington is so nasty, a lot of people have just turned their back on the electoral process at all. So if I become mayor, we will have a primary, even if I have to figure out some way to pay for it, which I don't think is that big a deal, especially when you give the community a chance to have a voice. But if you're going to be non-transparent and you want to let good old boys continue to run, then you don't have a primary. I just think it's ridiculous. And this is the best crowd we've had by double. We've had 2 or 3 others at forums. And there's been 100 people and 50 of them in the family. So definitely, it will increase your optimism and it will increase your community involvement once they get a chance to vet the candidates for 18 months. Thank you.
Dan Boyd?
Thank you. One of the key platforms of my campaign has been wanting to make sure that when I'm mayor, everybody has the opportunity to have a voice, everybody has the opportunity to have input. So in fact, throughout my campaign, that's what I've been doing, is talking to people and finding out what they want. I've asked this question of them. By overwhelming majority, the people have said, we want primaries. We don't like this current system. I personally don't like the current system. Tom elaborated on some of the reasons. Cost was supposedly one of the biggest reasons, but in fact we had a primary this year anyway. So we didn't really save much other than the cost for us as candidates to not have to campaign twice. I think we have to consider what this is really for. You know, it's democracy, it's for the people. We have to get back to doing what is right for the people. And if they say they want that back, and that's what I'm hearing, we need to do that. And I support that. We have to give people adequate voice to elect the people they want to represent them. That's the type of government we have, and that's what we've got to get back to.
Jeff Sanford?
Myself and Bob Glenn, we voted against this because I feel that a primary is highly important. And the thing about it is, you know, we talk about transparency and talking to people, and there is a nice crowd here tonight. I can tell you over the years that I've been involved in public service, I've knocked on literally thousands of doors over and over. And
I've stood on the porches, I've been on the back porches, I've been at the kitchen tables, and I get a lot of input from that. That's why primaries are important, so you can go out and talk to people, and they can get to know you, and you get to know them, and they'll tell you in their own home what they really think. People are more comfortable in their own homes than they are anywhere else when they're talking about things that are going on in the city. So it's very important as far as transparency. I mean, people will tell you what it's, what they really think. And I'll tell you, I was at Hardee's the other day, and those guys there, they know what's going on. If you want to be really drilled, just go to Hardee's on Parish Avenue, and they will put you through a lot of good questioning. And the thing about it is, day one, I will go bring the primaries back because I think they're very important. And, when I started, I didn't have any money either. All I did was print up some brochures and go out and knock on a ton of doors and got to know a lot of people. Thank you.
We've heard a lot of talk about involving the public, finding out how they feel about things. And I think that's a nice segue to the last question. And Neil, you will start with that. But I think one of the best ways to get people involved in the community, involved in government, is through the various boards and commissions, and that can serve as a springboard to the potential elected office down the road. So my question is, what will be your process for making appointments to boards and commissions, and how will you ensure that these boards include a broad representation of the community?
Well, first off, we're going to, instead of having 2 city commission meetings a month, we're going to raise it to 3. And so the city commissioners, which I've spoken with many of them, all of them except for actually 2 of them, the 2 that are currently in office, I've reached out to one and I didn't get a hold of the other. But we're going to take one inside City Hall, the 4 walls there, and then 2 of them we're going to get out to the community. And we're going to go to where you are at, and you're going to be able, you don't have to run all the way downtown and be in all as far as with the traffic and so forth. You can walk out of your house, you can go to Owensboro High School, you can go to Catholic High School, you can go to certain places and meet. Another way would be to develop 12 commission boards inside of our city. Those commission boards would be comprised as the Owensboro Public School teachers, the Northeast, Northwest, Southeast, Southwest, Owensboro city officials, and then by age increments, an over 65 board, an under 55, an under 40, an under 25, and then 2 of them that are kind of dear to me, kind of, so to speak, is a board that supports felons. Because young people, and when I say that, it's people my age, 25, 30, and 35, they made a mistake when they were 18 and 19 years old and they had a felony on them. It wasn't an egregious crime, but they're not able to get work and they're not able to support their families. And then youth sports. Sports teach kids character. It teaches them discipline. It allows them to grow as individuals into that camaraderie to work with people. And the only way we're going to move forward as a city is gathering everyone together, getting everyone's ideas, and working as a team, moving forward together for a positive change. So, yeah, just getting people working together, and that's all 3, by the way.
Tom Watson.
Thank you, Matthew. Having done this job before, I can tell you it's very difficult with these board appointments. And my whole thought process on it when I was mayor was I would call the chair of the board. Someone's coming off or someone's coming on, and I would say, how's JoJo doing? How's Billy Joe doing? How's Jane doing? And they said they were really good board members. I said, okay, let's keep them on the board or them on the board. And I've appointed people to different boards that I'd never met just because of the network of friends that I have. I'd call around and say, well, who can do this job best that you know of? And I would appoint those people. But I'm telling you, it's difficult. There's a lot of boards, and there's a small little group of people that are willing to serve for various reasons. Most folks have both husband and wife are working, and 2 kids, a couple of SUVs, and their time needs to be spent with their children, and I certainly understand that. But it's a tough job, and if people think that as mayor you just can go yada, 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 and everybody shows up, it doesn't happen that way. I included all my commissioners. I said, do you have any advice for OMU? Do you have any advice for RWRA? And use the whole group and everybody's network of friends to try and fill in all these slots at these different boards. Because there's 6 or 8 that are really, really important. And the rest of them are important, but not quite as much as the 6 or 8. And the talent pool is not that great, and they've been shoved from one board to another. So It's not as easy as it sounds. Let's be diverse. And my time is up.
Doug Hoy.
Thank you. I think one of the first things we have to do is we have to consider not just recycling the same people over and over again. One of the ways we do that, quite candidly, is we elect new leadership, people who have different circles of friends, different networks, and that leads to new people on boards, new people on commissions. There's a lot of good people in this community. Most people want to be part of the community. Not everybody wants to be on a board, some do, many do. They're never asked. They're never asked. We have to go to them. We have to go to the people. We have to involve the people. It's not easy. Nothing worthwhile is going to be easy. But we have to involve people, and go to them is the way to do that. We have to get out among the people. But we have to stop recycling. And what does that mean? Perhaps term limits, perhaps, and term limits imposed by us as the leaders and elected officials in the community. We have to say, well, we're just not going to do that. Sometimes that's very difficult to do because they're friends of ours. But we have to recognize that there are many, many good people in our community, many people that want to be part of this community in new and different ways. By listening to people, by going into the community, into their homes, into where they go to church, where they go to school, we will find people. Thank you.
Jeff Sanford.
I think it's imperative that we get new people on boards. I hear all the time that we're recycling and using the same people, and it's imperative that we get young people involved. Yeah, it's difficult, but here's what I want to do. I'm going straight to the Chamber of Commerce, because I know that they had a program years ago, and I don't really know that it was used. I want to use their tools, and I want to reach out to them, and I want to talk to them, and I want them to send me names, and I want to see what that they come up with. And I think if we use those type of things and the tools we have available, I think we can find some new people that I might not know. I know different people than the current mayor and maybe some other people up here. But I think you have to go out and you have to just talk to people and say, you know, I'm looking for a board member for this important board. And you have got to get younger people involved on these boards. It's going to look up one day. If we don't have younger people on some of these boards, nobody's going to know how to do anything. I started on a board, and that's how I got into this. You have to learn how the system works, and then you work your way up to different boards. You know, it's imperative going back that we do get new people on boards, and for the future of the city, I think that's one thing we need to do. And working with the chamber, I think is the way we'll get there.
David Crane.
Yeah, I know there was more to the question than just boards. Could you repeat just the first part, please?
Yeah, I was just talking about, we had talked about getting people involved, and so what would be your process for making appointments to boards, and how will you ensure these boards include a broad representation of the community?
Well, first thing is increasing communication. A lot of people don't know these boards exist, which is why you have the same 20 people. And you just shuffle them here and shuffle them there. You get the same decisions, you get the same thought processes. I don't know half the boards that these guys mentioned, and I've lived here all my life. You have to get the word out. You have to communicate better. I think some of our current city council does that very well. I think as mayor, it needs to be improved upon. I've seen the mayor, I saw him for about 5 seconds at the Red, White, Blue picnic. And in the 8 years he's been in office, I've seen him twice. And one time it was just, I was going in the door and he was coming out. Now, I'm not saying we gotta be best buddies. What I'm saying is, as a mayor, you have to get out and communicate with the people who put you in office. Your job as a mayor should be a steward for the people's concerns, to be the voice of the people, to run interference, so to speak, between what the city manager wants to do. You can't do that without getting out and communicating to the people what's going on, what's happening, and what you want to do. If it's in that relationship to filling a board seat, I have one guy, he's a friend of mine, he's been interested about every other day. He asks me about one particular board he wants to be on. You have to get out. You have to go outside your own
circle of friends, your own sphere, your own little bubble, whatever you want to call it. Go into those places that make you uncomfortable. People you don't know, places you might not want to go after dark. Get their input, see if they want to be on board, and increase your communication with them. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to closing statements now, and as I said earlier, that will be 60 seconds, and we will start, since Neil started the last question, we will start with Tom Watson.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you being here. Ms. Brake, Adam, Chamber, they're certainly involved in what we do as a commission. You know, it's been said that by somebody that I'm an old dinosaur, so why would you vote for him? Another guy said, well, he's been there and done that, why would you vote for him? Well, that's a pretty good reason. I've got a little experience, and I've been there and done that. I came before, we had a deficit of 2-point-something million, wow, 36, and I left in a surplus. But I created a group of people that I had great city commissioners with. And my whole theory right now is trying to figure out a way to do intermodal agreements, work with Frankfurt, work with the Senate and DC and the House, to try and do what we can to increase the opportunities for economic development in Owensboro. Because everything I do, I'll have an eye towards economic development. Thank you.
Doug Hoyt.
Thanks again to everybody for allowing us the opportunity to talk to you. Thanks to everybody in the audience and watching and listening, that taking the time to learn about those of us who want to earn your vote. I have 31 years of business experience in this community, much of that managing and meeting multi-million-dollar budgets. I'm committed to creating a community vision that involves everyone who wants to have an opportunity to have a voice. I'm offering everyone a fresh perspective. We are at a crossroads, a fork in the road. We need to make some different decisions, to continue moving forward, but do it in a different way. I want to thank you for your support. I'm asking for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Jeff Sanford.
Yes, I'd like to thank you guys for having me here tonight to share my thoughts with you also. But, you know, I really think that this community is on a roll, and you have to have a vision. And my vision is big for the community coming up. I think we haven't seen anything like this in 40 years. When we talk about jobs of the future and their careers, there's 3 ingredients to career that we need to keep in mind. It's a place somebody wants to live, and I think we've done that. It's about education. That's another ingredient people look for. You know, if you haven't been to the Innovation Academy, which I visited the other day, it's incredible. It's about skilled trade. It's about a labor pool. That's what companies look for. Also, they look for infrastructure. We've got the new I-65 designation. We've got gigabit fiber going to the homes and businesses. Those are the things of the future that we've got to start looking at. And those are where the careers will come from. Those are the things that you have to understand as the mayor, looking forward, looking into the future. And I want to thank you very much for having me tonight, and I would appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
David Crane.
I'd like to mirror what my friends up here have said. Thank you for sticking around tonight. I know there's a lot of places you could have been, a lot of things you could be doing, other than sitting here listening to us. So thank you for sticking out. A lot of people mentioned through the course of this evening, the city council and some other ones, throw out some facts. So I thought I would throw out a few facts myself. Fact. I have 20 years of experience working with taxpayer-funded budgets during my time in the military. And I went over budget 0 times. I had 0 special loans, 0 financing outside of my budget, and definitely 0 bonds. When you're in the military, you have a budget. You have to work within that budget. There's no extras, just like at home. You work a 40-hour week, you get paid this amount. There's no extra money. And I'm out of time. I had some more facts I want to rattle off, but I'll get to. 60 seconds goes fast. Again, Dave Crane, I'm number 5 on the ballot. what's ahead. If anyone wants to talk after it, I'll hang around for a while. Thank you.
And we will end with Bill Johnston.
A lot of people hear you just saying, don't feed me bologna and tell me it's steak, and that's what you've got a lot of this current administration. It's time for a change. You can stay in a bad relationship. Everyone's been in part of a bad relationship. They know someone, they have a family member, a daughter or a son or a mother or a father that's been in a bad relationship, and you tell them to get out. And they'll just stay in because they're comforted and we're creatures of habit and we don't like change. We have that opportunity. General Shinsetsky of the U.S. military said, if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevancy even less. This is our opportunity. We can spend the next 4 years, 1,440 days, 35,000 hours, and 2.1 million minutes doing the same thing, where a lot of people are still unhappy. If out of all these candidates, if I've done anything that's I've inspired a community and I've motivated a community, those that have opposed me and those that have supported me, and even a lot of the men up here. And a lot of these men up here I've talked to, especially one-on-one, that I'm going to need them once I get in if I'm elected, and I get to represent you. The best thing about this election is you have the opportunity to create change, a positive change. I don't ask for your vote, I ask for you to continue to inform yourself and make a good vote on November 8th.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight.